On this day in 1989, Chinese tanks rolled into Beijing's Tiananmen Square to crush a student-led protest movement calling for greater political freedom. The death toll remains in dispute, but it is believed thousands may have been killed. The iconic image of one man standing up to the tanks became a worldwide symbol of defiance. Elizabeth Palmer returned to Tiananmen Square 30 years later to find its bloody history erased by modern China.
From CBS News headquarters in New York, here is Dan Rather.
Good evening. Thousands of combat troops from the People's Liberation Army now occupy Tiananmen Square in Beijing. The students are gone.
They'd been there for weeks. Then on June 4th, hardliners in the Communist Party send in the army. It was a bloodbath. Hundreds, maybe thousands, were killed. Wu Kai-shi, then 21 and one of the main student leaders, escaped.
I am a survivor of a massacre. I have to live with the guilt.
He and the students knew the government was threatened by demands for reform.
Real ammunition and tanks rolling over people? No way. There's
You
no
never
way.
dreamed it would come to that.
No.
We visited Tiananmen Square, which is now a tourist attraction under 24/7 surveillance. Every lamppost supports a cluster of cameras. And the square's been completely scrubbed of anything that might recall the events of 1989.
It happened in the States?
In fact, the government has so successfully written them out of history
No idea?
that random young people we asked didn't even recognize the most famous Tiananmen picture.
Is in which country?
Communist Party is extremely nervous about people learning the fact of what happened, which is people stood up and challenged the government.
To make sure they never did it again, the party introduced sweeping economic changes that transformed China into a dynamic power, but at its core, it remains an authoritarian police state.
We failed miserably. Let's face it, they are exchanging our economic freedom with our political freedom.
Wu Kai-shi, the young idealist, paid a personal price.
You were there.
He spent the next 3 decades in exile.
I haven't been able to see my parents for the last 30 years. I cannot go back to China, and they denied them traveling abroad.
That's quite a price to pay.
I'm heartbroken for that.
And heartbroken for the reform movement, once so full of hope, now utterly crushed. For CBS This Morning, I'm Elizabeth Palmer in Beijing.
Ms. Palmer for us, just a stunning story.
It's amazing that in this day and age, with the way information can travel so quickly, that image essentially has been obliterated in China.
Indeed.